In the dead of night, a woman fled with her children in her arms. Exhausted, she entered a barn and fell asleep in the hay. But at dawn, the solitary farmer found her. Everyone believed he would drive her away without mercy. Yet the decision he made at that moment would change their fate forever. The wind blew cold that autumn morning. Leonardo gazed at the horizon, eyes half closed, as the mist still clung to the scattered trees across his land. The air smelled of damp earth and dry hay, scents that in some strange way brought him comfort, though they also reminded him of the loneliness that had marked his life for years. He adjusted his wide-brimmed hat, pulling on the old wool coat, patched so many times it could barely be called a coat, and slowly walked down the dirt path to the barn. Beside him, Max, his shepherd dog, ran and leapt over the grass, wagging his tail with an energy Leonardo no longer possessed. "Up too early for me again, old friend, don't you think?" he murmured, more to himself than to Max. But the dog seemed to understand, looking at him with attentive, loyal eyes. Inside the barn, the aroma of hay and aged wood enveloped him like a silent embrace. He began his daily ritual, opening the stall doors, checking the horses' water, feeding the few animals he owned. Every movement was meticulous, almost mechanical, yet there was comfort in it. This was the life he knew, the life he had built alone after losing everything. Leonardo had not always been this way. There was a time when he trusted people, when he believed in love, but life had dealt him blows too painful to bear. Memories of his wife and daughter, taken by a sudden illness, still haunted his nights. He had learned that pain never truly heals. One only learns to live with it. As he fed the horses, his thoughts drifted to the neighbors. Few dared approach. The reputation of a cold, reserved farmer had circulated for years. Not that he cared. Leonardo found peace in solitude, in the company of his dog, and in hard work. Social life had always seemed like a burden, and he did not wish to open himself to further loss. Yet there were rare moments when he allowed himself to remember. He recalled his wife's laughter, the smell of fresh bread in the morning, his daughter's smile as she ran across the fields. These memories, rather than comforting him, brought a pang of longing that tightened his chest. "Max, do you think people ever really learn to deal with pain?" he asked softly, stroking the dog's head. Max tilted his head, as if pondering the question, though obviously he had no answer. Leonardo sighed. The day moved at its slow pace, broken only by the sounds of the countryside, roosters crowing in the distance, the wind dragging dry leaves, the occasional creak of a barn plank. Each sound reinforced the sense of isolation. The farm was far from the city, surrounded by miles of fields and pastures, which made Leonardo feel protected, yet alone. He approached the small wooden house that served as his home. It was simple, yet comfortable. There was no luxury, no modern furniture, just the essentials. Every object carried stories, memories of the life he had before the tragedy. The kettle on the stove, the old rocking chair, dusty photographs of moments he could never relive. "Good morning, Max," he said, placing water and food in the dog's bowl. "Ready for another day of solitude?" Max barked, as if answering, "Yes, ready to face the day together." After breakfast, Leonardo went out again to tend the fields. He spent hours plowing the soil, fixing fences, and caring for the small orchard. Each task, though arduous, gave him purpose, a sense of control he could not find in his personal life. While working, his mind wandered to the days when the farm had been full of life. The absence of his wife and daughter was a constant wound. He remembered how they helped with simple chores, the joy in small daily routines. Now all was silence, interrupted only by Max's barks or the birds flying overhead. The sundial marked noon when Leonardo decided to take a break. He sat under the shade of a tree, pulling water from a metal bottle. Max lay beside him, his head resting on Leonardo's knees. For a moment, Leonardo closed his eyes and allowed himself simply to feel. He felt the cold wind on his face, the scent of damp earth, the faithful presence of his dog beside him. It was a simple sensation, but enough to remind him that, though his life had been marked by loss, there were still moments worth cherishing. When the sun began to sink toward the horizon, painting the sky orange and pink, Leonardo returned to the barn to feed the animals again. Golden light streamed through the wooden slats. illuminating suspended dust particles, creating an almost magical atmosphere. He sighed, recalling how he had always loved those hours of the day when nature seemed to breathe with him. Before going to sleep, Leonardo walked to the edge of the field, gazing over the vast pasture. He felt small before the expanse, yet protected. Max ran ahead, sniffing the wind. Leonardo smiled, a rare, almost forgotten smile. He knew he did not need anyone to survive, but sometimes, just sometimes, he wondered what it would be like to share that silence with another person. Night fell cold, and the simple wooden house felt emptier than ever. Leonardo prepared dinner alone, talked to Max about the day's events, and finally lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. The past was always present, yet he felt ready to face it alone, or so he thought. The moon shone over the barn and fields, a silent witness to a life marked by pain, yet also by perseverance. Leonardo closed his eyes, unaware that the solitude he so cherished was about to be interrupted in a way that would change his life forever. On the other side of town, the clock in the old kitchen read nearly 5 in the morning when Helena woke, her body aching and heart tight. The dimly lit house exuded the smell of burnt oil and old wood, reminders of times when she still believed she could have a peaceful home. But that dream had long been replaced by constant fear, by the threatening gaze of a husband who seemed more unpredictable with each passing day. She rose slowly, trying not to wake the children, Gabriel and Sophia, who slept on an improvised bed in the living room, covered with worn blankets. Every creak of the wooden floor seemed to amplify her anxiety. Her heart raced, and the memory of the argument from the previous night still ached in her soul. "Helena, where's my coffee? You don't even look like a housewife." Her husband's voice echoed from the kitchen, harsh and impatient. She took a deep breath, swallowing the fear that stubbornly rose in her throat. "Almost ready, love." "Just a minute," she replied, her voice trembling as she tried to sound calm. But he was not satisfied with excuses. He entered the kitchen, eyes narrowed, his expression loaded with anger. "Always late. You can't do anything right. No wonder the house is always a mess." Helena felt the weight of her husband's frustration strike her like an invisible punch. Inside, she burned with indignation, but she knew that any reaction could provoke even greater violence. She forced herself to take a deep breath, to keep her posture straight, though her racing heart betrayed her fear. After serving the coffee, she quietly went to the children's makeshift bedroom, watching Gabriel and Sophia still asleep. The tenderness and concern for her little ones were the only strength keeping her standing. "Mommy's here. Everything's okay," she whispered, caressing her daughter's hair. Her eyes filled with discreet tears. Each day was an effort to maintain normalcy, to prevent the children from sensing the weight of their situation. She remembered how, long ago, she had imagined the life she wanted: laughter in the mornings, bedtime stories, a safe and loving home. Now all of that seemed a distant, almost impossible dream. Her husband, meanwhile, had gone to work. He was a man who took pride in his power and control, but his presence was always oppressive. His temporary absence brought brief relief, but it did nothing to ease the constant feeling of danger. Helena knew she could not continue like this forever. Each night was a silent battle to protect her children. Each day, a struggle to keep hope alive. As she prepared breakfast, her mind began to explore alternatives, ways to escape that suffocating life. The thought of fleeing began to gain strength, like a flame slowly burning within her. She needed to find a safe place, far from her husband, where she could start over with her children. I need to figure something out," she murmured to herself. But escaping would not be simple. The town was full of curious eyes, neighbors who talked too much, people who judged without knowing the truth. Every step would have to be calculated, every movement planned. She began mentally organizing a plan: when to leave, how to take the children, where to go. Every detail was important, every risk had to be considered. Throughout the day, as she carried out household chores, the fear of being discovered was ever present. Every sound from the street, every passing car made her heart race. She watched her children carefully, teaching them to stay quiet, to avoid drawing attention. Their lives depended on every small act of caution. The day dragged slowly, marked by fatigue and tension. Helena used every moment of her husband's absence to think, plan, and prepare small things that might aid in their escape. Hidden clothes, some food, saved money. The feeling of always being watched was suffocating, yet it also strengthened her determination. When night fell again, bringing darkness and silence, Helena felt the need to prepare for the decision she knew she would soon have to make. She looked at her children, sleeping trustingly, unaware of the danger surrounding them, and felt a knot in her throat. Each silent tear that ran down her face was a mixture of fear and courage. "I can do this. I have to do this for you," she whispered, gently squeezing Gabriel's hand. The early hours of the morning approached, and Helena knew she would have an opportunity to act. While her children slept, she began gathering a few things, preparing for the escape that would change their lives. Every gesture was made carefully, every step planned so as not to wake the children. Her heart raced, but there was determination in every movement. The first step would be to leave town unnoticed, to find a safe place, a temporary refuge until they could regroup. She knew it would be risky, but the alternative, remaining under the control of a cruel man, was unthinkable. Each passing minute increased the urgency of her decision. As she stepped out through the kitchen door, Helena looked back at the house that had once been home, but which had now become a prison. A lump formed in her throat, but determination spoke louder. Firmly holding Gabriel's hand and carrying Sophia in her arms, she began walking silently down the deserted road, illuminated only by the pale light of the moon. The chill of the early morning did not diminish her courage. Each step was filled with both hope and fear. She did not know what lay ahead, but she knew she could not turn back. The sound of her own footsteps seemed deafening in the night silence. Fate was about to guide her to an unexpected place, an isolated barn where her life would intersect with that of a man who, despite his cold appearance, also carried deep wounds. Helena's life, until then defined by oppression and fear, was about to take an entirely new course. The night was cold and silent, broken only by the whispering wind through the trees and the distant sound of crickets marking the rhythm of darkness. Helena carefully made her way across the deserted land, keeping her children close. Gabriel, already 10 years old, held tightly to his mother's hand, while Sophia, younger, slept in her arms. Every step was an effort to remain silent, to prevent anyone from noticing their escape. "Mom, is everything okay?" whispered Gabriel, still sleepy, eyes half closed. "Yes, my dear. We just need to walk a little further, okay?" Helena replied, trying to convey reassurance. Her heart pounded. Every shadow seemed to hide danger, every sound was cause for alert, but courage outweighed fear. She had to find a safe place for herself and the children. The town they were leaving behind seemed increasingly distant, yet the risks remained near. As she walked, Helena sought refuge in thoughts of hope, a safe place, a roof over their heads, the promise of days without screams or threats. The winding, deserted dirt road seemed endless, but finally in the distance she spotted the silhouette of an old barn, partially hidden by trees. The aged structure seemed abandoned, yet promised protection from the early morning winds. "There! Looks like a safe place," she said softly, pointing to the barn. Gabriel looked on with curiosity and relief. "Can we sleep there, Mommy?" "Yes. Let's just get there first, carefully," Helena replied, squeezing his hand. The path to the barn required caution. The uneven ground, the dry branches cracking underfoot, and the cold wind all threatened to give away their presence. Helena moved slowly, with heightened attention, each step tense and deliberate. Reaching the barn brought a quiet relief. The structure offered shelter, protection, and a temporary sense of safety. Inside the barn, the smell of hay and aged wood was comforting, despite the rustic surroundings. Helena arranged the children in a clean corner, placing them on layers of hay that served as an improvised bed. She sat beside them, watching them sleep, feeling a wave of protection and love that made her forget, for a few minutes, the constant fear. "Sleep well, my little ones, Mommy's here," she whispered, stroking her daughter's hair. The night's silence was deep but not complete. Max, the farmer's dog, had yet to enter the scene, and fate, as always, seemed to carve unexpected paths. As Helena settled to rest, her thoughts wandered. She remembered the tension she had felt in recent days, the risky decision to flee, and everything she had left behind. Each memory brought pain, but also strengthened her resolve. She knew she needed to be brave, for herself and for her children. Time passed slowly, until the early hours of the morning, when the first rays of sun began to touch the cracks in the barn. Max, the loyal shepherd, noticed the presence of intruders and began barking intensely, alerting Leonardo, who was still asleep in his nearby house. The sound of barking cut through the dawn's silence. Leonardo, still groggy, dressed quickly and followed Max, curious and concerned about what the dog had found. As he approached the barn, his heart began to race. Something inside him told him that this morning would not be like the others. When he opened the barn door, Leonardo froze. Before him, hidden among bales of hay, was a woman with 2 children, trying to remain unnoticed. The initial shock gave way to cautious attention. He needed to understand the situation before reacting. "Who's there?" he called, his voice firm but without aggression. Helena rose quickly, still holding Sophia in her arms. "Please, we just need a place to stay, just for today." Her voice trembled, filled with both fear and hope. Leonardo approached slowly, observing every detail. The children seemed frightened, but not aggressive. The woman, despite the tired and dirty appearance from the journey, exuded strength and determination. He felt something unusual, a mix of compassion and caution. Helena took a deep breath, feeling enormous relief. "Thank you, truly thank you," she said, glancing at the children who were beginning to calm. Leonardo stepped closer and carefully extended his hand to her. "Come, I'll help you up." She accepted his hand, feeling the firm, secure touch, something strange yet comforting. As she rose, she noticed his attentive gaze, the way he evaluated the space and silently protected each movement. "Your children. They'll sleep in a room in my house. It's safer than here in the barn. You'll have a place to rest without worries," Leonardo said, his voice firm yet full of care. Helena looked at him, surprised and emotional. You would do this for us?" "Yes. No one here will get hurt, but we'll need to follow some rules," he replied, maintaining his serious gaze, though with a softness she hadn't expected. As he led Helena and the children to the house, Max ran around, barking cheerfully. The sense of safety began to settle in Helena's chest. For the first time in many days, she felt that they could be free from the constant fear of her ex-husband. At the same time, something new grew inside her, a quiet trust in this man who, despite his cold appearance, was proving protective and attentive. Leonardo showed them the room, simple but clean and comfortable, with neatly made beds and warm blankets. The children became excited, running to explore the space, while Helena breathed deeply, feeling relief and hope return. "You can rest here. I'll prepare something for you to eat shortly," he said, watching every gesture carefully. She looked at him once more, noticing something she hadn't expected. Her heart beat faster, mixing gratitude, relief, and a sense of something greater, something she could not yet name. And Leonardo, in turn, noticed the same. A strange connection forming, silent yet intense, between him and this woman who had unexpectedly entered his life. As Leonardo headed to the kitchen, Helena arranged the blankets, whispering to her children, "It's all right now, my loves. Mommy promised. We'll be safe. You'll rest, and tomorrow will be a new day. I trust this man, he'll protect us." Gabriel looked at her, blinking slowly, still sleepy, and Sophia squeezed her mother's hand. Helena sighed, feeling a mix of relief and concern. The fear of her ex-husband still lingered in her mind, but at that moment there was something solid. Protection, care, and the promise of calmer days ahead. Leonardo returned to the living room with simple but warm dishes, soup, bread, and fruit. He placed everything on the table and called Helena. "Eat while it's warm. It's no luxury, but no one goes hungry here," he said, watching closely. Helena smiled, moved. "Thank you for all of this, for taking us in, for helping us. I don't know how to thank you." He shrugged, returning to tidy the kitchen. "No need to thank me. Just take care of yourselves. Tomorrow we'll start organizing some things better, but for now, rest. You need to regain your strength." The children began to eat shyly, while Helena sat beside them, smiling peacefully. For the first time in days, she did not feel only fear, she felt hope. And every time she looked at Leonardo, she also felt a quiet curiosity, a strange sense of closeness she could not explain. Leonardo, in turn, observed the woman who seemed so strong and yet so vulnerable before him. His heart, closed for years, began to recognize that this makeshift family might mean something important. Protection was no longer just about guarding the barn or the animals. It was about these lives that now depended on him. After the meal, Helena helped clear the dishes, while Leonardo prepared extra blankets and lanterns, making sure the children's room was comfortable and safe. Max lay nearby, and the ensuing silence was filled with calm. For the first time, Helena allowed herself to relax, feeling the warmth of safety and a sense of belonging she hadn't felt in a long time. The next morning, Helena awoke early as usual, but noticed something different in the air. Leonardo was already up, silent and focused, tending to the morning chores with his usual efficiency. He did not speak much. His gaze was serious, almost distant, and each gesture carried firmness. For Helena, still accustomed to chaos and uncertainty, this coolness was unsettling. Gabriel and Sophia approached her, eyes wide. There was still fear in their small hearts, a natural unease in front of the tall, serious man who seemed to control every corner of the house. Helena sighed, trying to reassure them. "He's just like that, my loves. You don't need to be afraid. He just likes silence and order," she said, trying to sound confident, even though her own heart was uneasy. As always, Leonardo had breakfast ready. The aroma of freshly baked bread and warm milk filled the quiet kitchen, but he didn't utter a single word, merely observing from a distance, ensuring everyone took their meal. Helena guided the children, showing them that they could approach the table without fear. "Look, sit here. We'll eat before we start the day, okay?" Her voice, sweet, contrasted with his seriousness. The children obeyed, still cautious, but curious. Leonardo, without changing his expression, continued to watch, a heavy silence hanging over the kitchen. Helena felt the weight of this silence, but also noticed something else. Despite his coldness, there was care in every gesture. He didn't need to speak to show that he wanted to protect them. After the meal, Helena cleared the dishes, then went to the yard and found Leonardo. "Good morning," he said, his voice firm but carrying a quiet curiosity. "Good morning. Thank you for letting us stay here," she replied, her voice still trembling from sleep and restrained fear. He took a deep breath, trying to maintain the posture that had always defined him. Firm, yet not insensitive. "No need to thank me, but we need to talk. There are rules here. This isn't a public shelter." Helena nodded, understanding the firmness and the need to respect this space. She realized in that moment that the man before her was not just an isolated farmer, but someone who carried a sense of justice and protection. "I understand. We just want to spend some time in safety, that's all." Leonardo studied her for a few moments before finally speaking. "All right, you can stay, but we'll organize this properly. You won't disrupt my routine, and I expect you to follow the rules." Helena breathed deeply, trying to relax, but she couldn't help noticing how different Leonardo was. He didn't smile easily, didn't ask questions about her past or the children's, and didn't allow himself any display of affection. Yet, there was something in his presence that conveyed security, a strange contrast to the children's natural fear. In the days that followed, the routine began to take shape. Leonardo remained cold and reserved, didn't speak much to Helena, and the children still looked at him with some suspicion. But there was safety in every gesture he made, and it began to become evident to all. He always had breakfast ready, fresh bread, milk and fruit on the table, without needing to say a word. Helena and the children felt relieved to start the day with that quiet organization. After breakfast, Helena would take the children to the small garden Leonardo maintained. Gabriel and Sophia carried small buckets of water and learned to water the plants carefully. Helena showed them how not to overwater the seeds and how to check if the soil was moist. "Slowly, you two. No need to rush," Helena said, watching Gabriel tilt the watering can over the seedlings. "Look, Sophia, the soil is just right. This is how the little plant likes it, she added, smiling, feeling warmth in her chest at being able to teach her children something. After the garden, the children helped feed the chickens. Leonardo stayed nearby, watching silently, making sure each step was done carefully, but without much interaction. Pour the feed slowly, like this. Don't throw it all at once, Helena instructed, while the little ones followed her guidance. Gabriel looked at her and asked, "Mom, am I doing it right?" "Yes, my love, very well. The chickens will love it," Helena replied, smiling and stroking his head. Meanwhile, Leonardo took care of the larger animals and the barn routine, speaking little but paying attention to every detail. Helena observed every gesture, absorbing the instructions and learning quickly. Despite his coldness, there was implicit care in everything he did, preparing fresh water for the horses, checking the animals, and maintaining order. Helena felt a mixture of admiration and quiet curiosity for this serious yet protective man. At the end of the day, after feeding the animals and tidying the barn, everyone returned to the house. Helena prepared the meal, settled the children in the safe room, and watched Leonardo organize lanterns and blankets. Max lay nearby, always alert. The silence that followed was not uncomfortable. There was calm, security, and a sense of belonging that Helena hadn't felt in a long time. Each day, the children became more confident in the garden and with the chickens. Helena got used to the routine, and Leonardo, even without smiling, demonstrated silent care. Daily life created an invisible bond, marked by discipline, protection, and small acts of attention. What had begun as fear and distrust slowly transformed into trust. Leonardo's coldness did not disappear, but took on the contours of firm care, and Helena, observing him work, began to feel a mix of relief, gratitude, and quiet curiosity toward this man who, without realizing it, was starting to occupy a place in their lives. One day, while Helena was washing clothes, Gabriel and Sophia were running around the yard, laughing and playing, as any children would. But in a moment of carelessness, Gabriel tripped over a stone and fell, scraping his knee on the ground. He immediately cried, startled and in pain. Leonardo was fixing some fences nearby when he ran over, concerned. His serious face didn't show panic, but his attentive eyes made it clear that the situation had become a priority. "Gabriel, stay still. I'll take care of you," he said, his voice firm but calm. Leonardo grabbed a clean cloth, soaked it in fresh water, and began carefully cleaning the boy's wound. Gabriel curled up, but Leonardo's steadiness and attention helped ease his fear. "Don't move. It will hurt a little, but it won't get worse." "Take a deep breath," Leonardo instructed, keeping his gaze fixed on Gabriel, showing focus and care. Helena was outside washing clothes. A few minutes later, when she entered the house to get a clean cloth, she stopped abruptly. Gabriel was sitting on the floor, tears streaming down his face, while Leonardo, kneeling beside him, carefully cleaned the scrape on his knee. Max lay nearby, alert to every movement. Sophia ran to Helena, still frightened. "Mom!" Gabriel fell, but the farmer helped him. He cleaned it and put a bandage on him. Helena hurried over, watching Leonardo apply ointment to Gabriel's scrape and secure the bandage, each gesture performed with precision. The boy began to calm down, wiping his tears with his shirt sleeve. "There, it will get better quickly now, but stay still and don't rub your knee," Leonardo said, giving the boy a light pat on the shoulder. Helena lightly touched his arm, wordlessly conveying her gratitude. "Thank you. You were quick and careful," she said, still emotional. Leonardo looked away, returning his attention to the yard as if it were just part of the routine. "It's okay. Kids get hurt sometimes. It's part of life." Gabriel looked at Leonardo and with a small, shy smile said, "Thank you, sir." Helena smiled, feeling immense relief and a quiet pang of respect. Despite Leonardo's usual coldness, this gesture showed that behind his seriousness lay genuine care and attention. Max wagged his tail slightly, as if approving the scene, while the silence that followed brought a sense of calm and safety for everyone. From that day on, something began to change in the household dynamic. Gabriel and Sophia, once cautious, started approaching Leonardo more. When he appeared to feed the animals or organize the barn, they ran to him, curious and confident. Max, noticing the change, wagged his tail more often, and even Helena sensed a subtle warmth in the farmer's heart, which had once seemed so distant. Leonardo, despite his habitual coldness, began to show small signs of humanity, a softer look, a silent nod of approval, or a patient correction without the usual severity. He still didn't speak much, but his presence became increasingly comforting for everyone. One night, late, Helena woke and realized she couldn't sleep. She quietly left her room, wearing a light coat, and went out to the yard. There, she found Leonardo sitting on the porch, Max beside him, gazing at the stars. The silence of the place was deep, broken only by the rustle of leaves and the occasional distant bark of an animal. "I can't sleep," she admitted, approaching slowly. Leonardo slowly raised his eyes, offering a discreet nod without words. She sat a few meters from him, watching the sky, trying to find courage to break the silence. "Why do you live alone?" she finally asked, her voice low, almost hesitant. Leonardo remained silent for a few seconds, looking at Max before answering. His voice, deep and firm, carried a weight he rarely showed. "My wife died a few years ago from an illness. I haven't had anyone since. Only Max was left." He looked at the dog, nestled close, then back at Helena. "He's been my only companion ever since. It was always just him and the farm." Helena felt her heart tighten. Behind his coldness and serious gaze, there was a deep pain and loneliness she had never imagined. For a moment, the world seemed smaller, silent, and the stars above them appeared to witness this quiet conversation between two people marked by the past. "I'm sorry," she said softly, not getting too close, but conveying genuine empathy. "It must have been very hard for you." Leonardo looked away, taking a deep breath. "It was lonely. Still is, but Max, keeps me standing. Gives my routine meaning, even if I don't want to admit it." Helena remained silent for a few seconds, absorbing each word, feeling a quiet connection with this man who, despite his coldness, was beginning to reveal a warmer heart. "I feel like you're not as alone as you think." Leonardo studied her, his serious gaze softening. Finally he spoke. I don't know if I deserve to have someone by my side again." Helena took a step closer, feeling courage forming. "Maybe it's not about deserving. Maybe it's about letting someone in and trusting." The silence that followed was almost electric. Leonardo took a deep breath, and for the first time allowed himself to move closer to her, almost instinctively. Helena didn't step back. The warmth between them grew, subtle but undeniable. Then, in a slow, almost hesitant gesture, he cupped her face with his large, firm hands. She closed her eyes, feeling the strength and gentleness intertwined in that touch. And finally, their lips met. The kiss began timidly, restrained, but soon intensified, charged with all the tension, fear, and desire that had built up over days of quiet coexistence. Max lifted his head, barking softly, but they didn't even notice. Time seemed suspended, and for a moment, Leonardo's painful past, Helena's fears, and the worries about the children vanished. There was only them, connected, allowing their feelings to finally surface. When they pulled back, still close, breathing heavily, Helena whispered, "I trust you." Leonardo simply nodded, keeping her hand in his, feeling her warmth against his usual coldness. For the first time in a long while, his heart felt lighter, more open, ready to embrace something he had never imagined. Love and family, right there under the same starry sky. Everything seemed finally at peace, but that tranquility was about to be shattered. It was a quiet afternoon, and Helena and the children were in the yard, while Leonardo tended to Max and checked some fences. Suddenly, the sound of heavy footsteps drew everyone's attention. Before they could react, Helena's ex-husband appeared at the entrance of the farm, panting and visibly exhausted. "You think you can hide from me?" he demanded, his voice laden with anger and frustration. "I've spent weeks looking for you, sleepless, barely eating, and finally I found you." The children stepped back, frightened, clinging to their mother. Helena felt her heart race, but kept her stance firm, shielding Gabriel and Sophia with her body. Leonardo, immediately sensing the threat, stepped forward, his expression still cold, but his eyes fixed on the man before him. "They are safe with me. Step away now," he said, his voice firm and authoritative. The ex-husband laughed scornfully, ignoring the warning and advancing a few steps. "No, they're mine. You don't understand anything. I have the right to be with them." Helena positioned herself between Leonardo and the man, her voice decisive and strong. "Please, don't hurt anyone. I can take care of my children, but I will not allow violence." Tension escalated quickly. Leonardo stood still, measuring every movement of the ex-husband. Max barked, moving closer to Leonardo, ready to defend him and protect the family. "Leave. Now. We won't hurt you. But if you try anything, I won't hesitate," Leonardo warned, his usual coldness replaced by protective determination. The ex-husband, consumed by the rage and frustration of weeks spent searching for Helena and the children, took a threatening step forward, lunging directly at Leonardo. "You don't understand. They're mine. I'm taking them right now," he shouted, his body tense, fists clenched. Leonardo held his ground, eyes locked on the man threatening his newly formed family. He did not retreat. But before the ex-husband could strike, Leonardo reacted with precision. In a swift, controlled movement, he grabbed the aggressor's arm firmly, blocking the attack instantly. "Stop now!" Leonardo commanded, his voice firm and authoritative, conveying absolute control. The ex-husband struggled to break free, fighting against Leonardo's strength, but was quickly immobilized. Max barked, growling low, reinforcing the protective presence of the farmer. Helena, still holding her children, felt her heart race at the speed and power with which Leonardo reacted. "They're not going anywhere with you," Leonardo said, maintaining firmness, a piercing gaze, and a steady posture, preventing any aggressive move. "You can't do this to me! Let me go!" the ex-husband shouted, surprised and frustrated, realizing he could not overcome Leonardo. "I won't let go. Step back and leave, or you'll face bigger problems than you imagine," Leonardo replied, relentless but without unnecessary violence. Helena took a deep breath, feeling a mixture of fear and admiration. She realized that, despite the coldness Leonardo always displayed, here was all his strength and determination to protect those he loved. Gabriel and Sophia, still trembling, looked at the farmer with new eyes, respect and trust rising alongside silent admiration. After a few seconds that felt eternal, the ex-husband, realizing he would not succeed, stepped back, breathing heavily and completely defeated. Leonardo kept his gaze firm until the man disappeared down the dusty road, ensuring there was no further threat. Once the ex-husband had vanished along the path, the farm fell into a deep silence. The wind blew through the trees, carrying a sense of relief and peace, as if nature itself approved of Leonardo's protection. Helena hugged her children tightly, feeling their hearts still racing, but safe. Gabriel and Sophia curled up next to her, confident that at last there was no immediate danger. Leonardo stayed nearby, watching every movement attentively, standing firm but allowing himself a small sigh of relief. Max lay down beside him, licking his hands, almost as if sharing in the silent relief that hung in the air. Helena approached Leonardo, still emotional. "I don't know how to thank you. You really protected us. For real." Leonardo looked away for a moment, but he didn't pull back. There was a quiet sincerity in his gesture and in the firmness of his presence. "No need to thank me. They're safe now. That's all that matters. And as long as I'm here, no one will hurt you." Helena felt a wave of trust wash over her heart. For the first time, she truly believed they could have peace, that they no longer needed to live in constant fear. The children, sensing the security emanating from Leonardo, drew even closer to him, feeling that this serious, reserved man could be a safe harbor. Months passed since the confrontation with the ex-husband. The farm, once silent and cold, now breathed life and joy. Helena, Leonardo, and the children had found a solid routine marked by care, affection, and mutual respect. Each passing day reinforced the sense of safety and belonging that they all needed. Mornings began early, with the roosters crowing and Max running around the yard. Leonardo, still serious in appearance, had grown accustomed to the constant company of Helena and the children. He prepared breakfast, watched the children eat, and silently ensured that everything was in order for the day. Gabrielle and Sophia, once shy and hesitant, now ran alongside him, helping feed the chickens, water the garden, and learning every detail of daily farm life. Helena devoted herself to the garden, organizing the house and teaching the children small tasks of care and responsibility. But there was also time for laughter, stories, and cozy moments. She watched Leonardo with a discreet smile, noticing the subtle change in the man who had once seemed cold and distant. Now he allowed small gestures of affection, a touch of her hand, a look conveying concern or approval, a restrained hug during quieter moments. One peaceful afternoon, Helena approached Leonardo while he was fixing a fence, the sun illuminating his serious face. "You know, sometimes I'm still amazed by all this, how we managed to find peace here." Leonardo paused for a moment, looked at her, and replied in a deep but gentle voice, "It's not just peace. It's more than that. It's family. It's protection. It's knowing that no one will hurt you again." She smiled, feeling her heart warm, and leaned to rest her head on his shoulder. Max ran around them, barking happily, as if celebrating this moment of union. The children ran over, laughing and calling for Leonardo, who finally responded with a restrained but genuine smile. The serious, reserved man had transformed into the protective, loving and steady figure they all needed. On calm nights sitting on the porch, Leonardo and Helena talked about the future. They planned the expansion of the garden, small improvements to the house, and the children's routine. More importantly, they planned to continue building the home they now had, based on trust, care, and the quiet love that grew stronger every day. The painful past seemed distant, erased by the warmth of the family that was forming. Helena knew she would never need to feel fear again, and Leonardo finally understood that love was not weakness, but strength, strength to protect, care, and give himself fully. And so, on the quiet yet lively farm, with the sun setting on the horizon and Max lying beside the family, Helena, Leonardo, and the children felt they had found something few ever do: a home, a secure future, and the certainty that together they could face any challenge. The wind blew softly, carrying the scent of wet earth, flowers, and the garden, as if whispering a promise. Their love would always be strong, steady, and true. And in that unlikely home, yet filled with protection and affection, they finally found peace, happiness, and hope, a new beginning that no obstacle could erase.